Welcome back, everybody, and we are back to another episode of Anime Talks. It's been a little while. I have to end up watching something first and then be able to bring something to the table. So, in this episode, it's going to be a little bit of one of those smaller animes. I'm a huge fan of those one season hits. I did end up looking up to find out that it was something a little extra that I was missing. But today we're going to be covering the Eminence and Shadow. It is a really good anime. Heavily advise it that you take some time to watch this. I watched it on Hulu. Hulu has only one season out. After doing some research, there is a second season without a third season being confirmed and a confirmed movie on the way. So with that being said, let's dive down and let's see what we can find out. So in the beginning of Eminence and Shadow, we see this young kid named Sid Kagenou, who is very, very nonchalant. He's like this little school kid that nobody likes. As a matter of fact, correction, Minoru Kagenou. He's very nonchalant. He ends up pissing off one of his friends at the beginning of the show. It is hilarious. What I mean is hilarious. It is ridiculous. He ends up doing all these extra things. There's this girl who he ends up, I want to say her name is it's like Claire or Alexia, one of the two. No, it's Claire. So in the beginning, and this is where the trippy part starts off. So at the beginning, he is this very nonchalant character, just couldn't remember people's names. He's that kid you didn't like in school. And he ends up going to do like vigilante work outside of school. So he was taken care of. He was kind of like the Batman of Japan, basically, just going out, destroying things, tearing things up, and so far and so forth. And then there's this very rich family whose daughter gets taken captive, and he breaks in and takes down all of the people that were on guard. And one of the people that were on guard was this ex-military vet, and he completely and utterly destroys them. But he ends up getting very frustrated at the end and says that he needs to train for more. And this actually leads to something that you find out a little bit later, and it just stirs up and gets even bigger and bigger and bigger. When he frees the young girl and lets her go, he ends up not showing up to school anymore because I think from what I recall, he didn't show his face. He actually had something over his face, and he had a ski mask on and fought with crowbars. It's very, very, very like an inept character, and it's just unbelievable. So eventually, when he doesn't show up to school, there's a news report on the TV in the show that shows that Minoru Kagenou actually died. He died in a vehicle accident. And then now to bring some, we're going to foreshadow that portion later, but next thing you know, like the show abruptly ends just right after that. And then we move from a modern day setting to more of a like King Arthur or a medieval time setting, and where we see magic and like just all kind of different strange abilities, and we see Kagenou, Minoru Kagenou, reborn as Sid Kagenou. It is crazy. So now to get to the portion where it would make sense is he's hardcore training as while he was Minoru. While he's training, he ends up saying something where he needs to be stronger than strength and like anything physical in himself. He needs to become atomic, nuclear. So right as he says this, he's running out screaming, and this is something that's definitely noteworthy to watch while watching and notice the pieces get put together. He's running and like frantically screaming that he needs to be stronger and that he wants power, and then he immediately gets smashed in by this truck. Well, when he gets reborn, he is also still trying to get his life back together. He goes through being a baby all over again. This show is full of comic relief, a bunch of comedy. Definitely, you'll get your laughs. It's very nonchalant, anime, RPG, just all kinds of stuff in there that you'll like if you're interested into that kind of thing. And with Sid being reincarnated now, he actually he's reborn with magical powers, and he decides to be background character A, where that's his title throughout the rest of the show, basically, where he calls himself that until the final episode of season 1. I should definitely, we're actually going to be renaming this. We're going to call this Eminence and Shadow season 1, and only because, of course, I watched season 1 and then now I'm back here recording, and of course there's a season 2, and maybe I should watch season 2 first, but I can always come back and add more to this a little later on. They end up crafting this very well when in terms with making it to where you really know everything's almost predictable, but like not really predictable. If it's like what's going to happen, but you're so caught in by all of everything going around. Like Sid is just, or we'll just refer to him as Kagenou because that's him in both lives. He's Kagenou in modern and Kagenou in the fantasy realm. He ends up being the mastermind and creating a hidden organization called Shadow Garden. And this is all while he is a child before he goes off into the Dark Knight Academy in Midgar. He's also second best to his sister Claire. By the way, for those who may or may not have paid attention to who Claire is actually a rebirth or reborn reincarnation of the same girl that he saved in his past life. So he is reincarnated as the girl he saved, younger brother in this. It's so crazy on how all that's put together, but you got to take it for what it is. It's fun. The character switch ups are completely awesome. The story changes, the plot twist, the plot armor. I've never seen plot armor as flashy as this. Like, as a matter of fact, plot armor usually like pisses people off, but this plot armor is amazing because you just never know what's going to come up. You really just don't know. Then when Sid is constructing and building up his elven regime of warriors, all these girls are actually possessed and are possessed by this like almost kind of like infection or disease that is placed on them by the cult of Diablos. And while he's on this journey to build this regime, by the way, also, as you'll see as you watch this, Kagenou still has his nonchalantness. Like, if you ever seen something like a show or any type of character that just everything works out just because it works out. There's like no thought process behind it. That is Kagenou. Like it's just something you have to see. Like everybody in the show, his regime, like his lead right hand lady, Alpha, and all the rest. By the way, they're all named after like Greek letters and all kinds of stuff. So you have like you have Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta, Lambda. You have all these elven ladies who have this. They have all these like high, mighty beliefs on how Kagenou does things, but he just acts. He just acts like without even doing, without trying, and then it just so happened it just works out just right, and they're like super fixated on making sure to like carry out these plans, and just so happen he nonchalantly does things to where like the plans work out and fall out right. And when I mean he lives up background character A to the fullest, he'll sit there and like talk about all of his plans as the leader of Shadow Garden, aka Shadow. He does all this like in front of people and just nonchalantly talks about it, and they're like not even paying attention to him because when he was reincarnated and is born into the Kagenou family, he's actually a nobody. He's matter of fact, it's from a almost kind of like a peasant, a commoner type family. So not being born into royalty or anything like that. He's looked at as just like a countryman, just like a lowly commoner. So nobody's taking him serious at all. And that plays a very funny part into all this because he's sitting there doing all kinds of things, has all these amazing abilities. Probably like they do so well with him because he's the strongest character in the show by far as of now, as of the close of season 1. It blows my mind on how many shows really just can't handle when the protagonist is also just like the best character there is. This show handles it great because there's so much comedy and there's so much plot that's going on around it that you really overlook the fact that he could just come in and just like finish everything off fell swoop. And he makes that clear too in so many different ways, in so many different showdowns and so many different encounters where he just like basically says, oh, well, I could just end this in like maybe a couple seconds, but there's like 10 to 15 different ways I can finish this off, but I'm gonna choose this way. I'm gonna go out this way. And it makes it super funny because you're just like, I want to see how he's going to do it just because he knows he can. And they did so good with the animation to construct and show how great that the options are with his mindset and just how condescending he is when it comes down. Just like so much flash and so much flair behind him. It's great. You just can't override that. And so a little bit back into the story, that was definitely a tangent, just a very good review tangent, by the way, of just how great that this show is for those who definitely don't want nothing too serious, even though there's a lot of things that are going on serious within it. There's just so much comedy in it that you can watch all of it in stride and not really be bored. I'd have to say there's almost like really no filler episodes as well. First season is a 20 episode season, and I did not run into anything where I felt was filler. Everything carried on a little bit towards the show that you didn't feel anything was like too far from the plot. Everything like had a little bit of something to tie into the plot and just bring it to a better viewpoint, or where you've seen things in a different perspective. They did great. And when this is all going on with the whole Cult of Diablos, you end up seeing there's a lot of other things going on as well, like a bunch of different factions, a bunch of different kingdoms that are tied into this, that are like, it's kind of like the mafia. There's like so many corrupted payoff type people that are inside it. So many sketchy different things, and they're able to take the power of Diablos and become like intensified. And we see this many a times with these different pills that are taken by certain people or certain antagonists beings in different episodes where they're just like they just become enraged and all kinds of stuff. And we see how not only is Shadow Kagenou even like strong, his regime is even stronger. All of his elven followers are beyond capable of like disposing anything that comes up. So they do like try to like not make them seem so like overpowered in like certain fights. Like they'll like let them keep people at bay while he'll go do like the main fight. And even when he does the main fight, they do so good with like making the fight go on to where you can see how things go, even though you know in your mind, no, you know, it just can't go on any further. While Kagenou is living as the commoner now inside the Dark Knight Academy, he undergoes a different different amount of things. He ends up meeting the younger Princess Alexia, where Princess Alexia's older sister basically runs, or like kind of is like the second in line to run the capital, because their father is still alive. And he actually runs, and that's like one of the first characters you end up running into that are immediately tied into the plot. And she's going through this weird thing where she's trying to like cut off this guy that she's being betrothed to marry. And it's one, I want to say it is the instructor, one of the instructors that are there. And while that's going on, Kagenou is of course he's Shadow, and so he's just being background character A. And they go through that little spat where kind of find out the instructor was tied into the Cult of Diablos and was really trying to get the blood of the royalty, which was Alexia. It just keeps getting better and better and better. So once that was closed out, he was able to save her, and so far and so forth. It was one of those little side stories that tied into the bigger scene, and that's with Alexia not even knowing what's really going on. And then we end up meeting with Princess Iris later on as well. She's just more of like I'd have to say like a higher tiered royalty person, where you only see her when she's like trying to do diplomatic things within the kingdom and handling important business between so many different factions and whatnot. She becomes actually just a later influencer later in the show, but you just hear of her because she is Alexia's older sister, and Alexia is considered like second rate, just not even on par with her older sister. Then we end up meeting Princess Rose of the Oriana Kingdom. That's another one. And by the way, they do such a great little thing where it's like Sid has like a harem of women just everywhere, where every woman he runs into, they like lightly fall in love with him or like him to some extent. The closeout between him and Alexia, he actually turned Alexia down once things like slowed down. So the way they handle things were great. Is just how they just dumb things down where you can still enjoy the show, even though you know that he's just an overpowered character in the show. You end up seeing the Princess of the Oriana Kingdom, Rose, go through a lot of different things. She chose the path of fighting, even though her kingdom is based on the arts and culture. So she's actually going down a path that the kingdom doesn't approve of and is not known for, because she wants to be a warrior. And you see just a lot of different things, just like a lot of stuff going on outside of the Kagenou and Shadow persona. Like, I think that's what's really good about the show. There's so many diplomatic issues going on that you really can't get, you don't feel like you're really watching Shadow just kicking everybody's butt. Like, and that's what happens, but you don't really see it happen because there's so many other controversies and conspiracies and stuff going on that you really don't have the time to be like, oh man, this is just a show about this guy just swinging around, slashing everybody up. And as soon as he comes in, it's game over. You really don't see that as the main point of the show anymore because they dive deep when it comes into cultural problems that are going on between the kingdoms and internal civil unrest. You see a lot of stuff going on to where it's just complex, and the political strain everywhere makes things great. It makes it great. You get involved, and you don't feel like you're just watching boom. Like it's kind of like thinking about One Punch Man at this point. It's great. And while the show progresses, you end up seeing Shadow Garden kind of take root. They end up making a fictional company. I say a fictional company. It is a company, but it's just fictional because, anime, whatever. They become Mitsuguru. It's a new company that that drops everything from modern day into this medieval time. So they have chocolate, coffee, thongs, G-strings. It's crazy on how much stuff that they involve and bring. And basically this is all stuff that is like plagiarized almost. Like I can't remember who played it. Was it Beta? I can't remember which one. Or Gamma. I can't remember which one. One of the elven little ladies. No, Beta. So she's an Arthur in her own right, but not really, because she comes out with with books and music based off of stuff that actually came out in modern times that isn't known now because they're back in medieval realm. It's crazy. It's funny, like how they're enjoying things that we would enjoy in modern times, but it is considered like a new thing. It's like they invented the wheel at this point in this new world. So it's funny on how the breakdown is. That's like the comedy part where you kind of just take away and like just enjoy just the progression of the show without it being too serious all the time. Then as we get closer towards the end of the show, or the end and close of season 1, we end up seeing like a big ramp up of things. You end up seeing like the kingdoms going through all kinds of things, where you see the cult of Diablos is deeply rooted within in all the kingdoms in some type of fashion, and they're actually after all these artifacts and all these other different pieces of ancient architect, and they're trying to use this to take over the whole world. So while that's going on, you do have Shadow Garden, not including Shadow, that they are doing their best to try to stay on top of everything, which they do very well. They got spies everywhere. At the end of this season, we find out that they are actually 666 members strong. So just take into account of that this actually started with, I can't remember how many he started off with at the beginning, but he only had like the basic, like I want to say like 7 or 11. It's like 7 or 11, maybe 12. I can't remember the number that he started off with. He started off with like a small amount of elves, and they just blew up, and they just started picking up everybody, and it gets better. Like they reinvented the wheel when it came down to that, of being able to make things bigger, but you see everything so much on a small scale, and you see a lot of reoccurring characters. So it doesn't look like it's that big until the end, when you hear that. You're like, boom, 666. That's interesting. By the way, that number is so synonymous with the fact that Shadow is actually referred to as the demon Shadow at the end and close the season one. But as we get closer to season one, the ending, the political unrest, we see the guy that is picked out to marry Princess Rose. There's a lot of turmoil within that. He ends up being part of the Cult of Diablos, the fiance, and he is doing his best. He's taking control over the king and the King Oriana, and have him drugged up to where he's like a puppet. And as this is going on, you have the Bushin Festival going on, where it's just a huge fighting like experience, and the winner of it is almost kind of get granted like just the ability to kind of like just they kind of like do whatever. But in this certain situation, with everything going on with the civil unrest that is going on in Midgar, you have Princess Iris, who needs to win it so to gain the people's support. So you can kind of see where this is going here. You have also Sid, who wants to participate in the festival but can't participate as himself because his older sister Claire, is also in the Bushin Festival as well. So he actually goes in as a different persona, mundane man, and infiltrates and participates in the Bushin Festival. As we watch the Bushin Festival take place, I would have to say that the Bushin Festival, we can call that like its own like mini arc within season one. It lasts for about like 3 or 4 episodes, maybe even like 5 itself, but it is beautiful. It's a good way to close out season one. That portion of season one is amazing, and you just can't replace the experience that you see here. You see Sid as mundane man is well, we can just say he's doubled up. Like, he's sitting there watching as Sid until it's time for Mundane Man to fight, and then he goes, participates as Mundane Man, kicks butt, goes back, and he moves so quickly that they don't see. So everything looks like it's like he's getting lucky, and it's so funny on how everything's looking for like the regular people, but those with a bit of combat prowess amongst them can see that he's actually doing something. And it gets better and better as the season gets closer to closing out. And when he gets to the point to where it's him versus Iris, it goes to a whole new unparalleled situation. By the way, while this is going on, Rose is also possessed. She's about to turn into one of those crazy monsters, but there's one thing that happens in between this time, all the way to the ending. We have Kagenou. Well, at this point, he's Shadow. Shadow comes down and heals her and removes the possession from taking over her, and tells her to keep pushing forward with her mission and what she's going to do in life. And that foreshadows to the last portion where she takes off after slashing and assaulting her fiance. I hate to say the guy's name because they did so good with like inserting such like provocative things into the show. But perv asshat, that's exactly how it's said, and that's exactly how it's spelled. PERVASSHAT. It is what it is. Perv asshat, who is a part of the Cult of Diablos, he is a piece of crap. I'll tell you that much. Completely horrible. He's part of this little political strain where he's trying to take over the kingdom by forcing the marriage in between and getting with Princess Rose. But while it's crazy, it's one of those situations where it really didn't happen, but it happened because she got set up. But she noticed her dad being taken over and being used as a puppet, and she goes berserk and does this little kind of like a little attack, but not really. It's sad. It kind of hurts your heart to see it, but it happens. And she ends up kind of like Public Enemy number one, kind of like watching John Wick at this point, where like she's banished, exiled, and she's on the run from her own kingdom. And while she's on the run, her Beta, this is Beta as her Beta pretends to be this Arthur, by the way, where she forms a pact with Princess Alexia and Princess Rose to all help each other and form this little group to understand each other and get down to understanding what's going on within the Cult of Diablos. So when this is going on, Princess Alexia runs into Princess Rose. This is after Rose was cured of her possession, and she has like a newfound strength, and it is nuts. They have this little fight. Rose whips up Alexia and walks off, and Beta tells her, whatever you do, continue your mission and do what you got to do. Well, this mission was returning back to the kingdom and confronting Pervasat. When she did, this is during the Bushim Festival. Like, all this is going on at one time, by the way. The Bushim Festival, where you have the King Oriana getting like just completely like puppet, like being a huge puppet, being taken everywhere, made to follow what Pervasat's saying. Then you have Princess Rose, who's trying to get in. Then you have Mundane Man, who's actually Shadow, who is actually Kagenou. You have all that going on. He's fighting against Princess Iris. Princess Iris needs to win so that she can have the people's support in the diplomatic standpoint of the Midgard kingdom. And then you have Lady Beatrix, who was the first Bushing Festival winner, just hanging out there looking for an elven warrior that looks like her. By the way, a little foreshadowing, I never covered this, but her doppelganger is Alpha. So that tie-in's crazy. I wonder how that's going to go. Wonder if Lady Beatrix will ever meet Alpha. I'll have to find out in season 2, but season 1, it didn't happen. And she's so suspicious of Kagenou, of knowing who she's looking for. It's so funny. It's good. And during the ending clash where Beatrix and Iris team up because everything's disturbed, Rose walks up and goes to attack the Pervasat. Goes to attack, and while that's happening, Rose says, "Father, I must do what I have to do." Right then, the father, King Oriana, says, "Daughter, I forgive you of all your sins." When that happens, when I mean like the craziest thing, like when I'm getting goosebumps now even saying it, because that's when he's able to get control of himself just long enough to know what's going on. Rose launches, boom, goes out. As soon as she goes out, Pervasat grabs the king and pulls him as a body shield in front of him. And unfortunately, we know what happens next. She ends up piercing through her father and killing him on the spot. While that's going on, his last words was, "I love you, Rose." And that by far is crazy. So she pierces through the dad, and he's put down. Well, then right then, she's about to commit Sudoku. She has the blade up to her neck, and she's about to end it because she went up and then at least freed her father and doesn't know what else to do. Well, right as soon as that happened, Mundane Man hops up through the glass, breaks through, And he ends up changing into Shadow all throughout this little transition here. And it is amazing. What I mean is amazing is freaking awesome. Like, you just can't replace that moment that happened there. And when things get like really hectic, he says, "So this was your decision." And then boom, Rose decides to just keep fighting and fighting and fighting and doesn't give up. Well, right then, there was nobody to protect Perv Assad. So Shadow was about to go nuts and just boom, knock him off. And I can't remember what Perv Assad just had said, but he ended up making like a comment saying like, he doesn't have, where's all his reinforcements. Right then, Lady Beatrix said, I'll step in. So Lady Beatrix steps in to fight against Shadow right then and there. It is crazy how like everything just changed up. I'm just like, hold on. Lady Beatrix, you helping the bad guy. What are you doing? Like, no, this ain't it. This ain't the play, lady. You're supposed to be a warrior of honor, integrity, not just, but there's a reason why. Right beforehand, she was like, oh, I would want to fight him. And then seeing him change in the Shadow, she's like, oh, well, I can still fight him still. He isn't who he is, but hey, I'm down. So there is the showdown between Beatrix and Shadow that is going on for like a portion of like one of the episodes. Well, then the next episode following that opens up with Iris's perspective, where she's on the ground watching Mundane Man hop in and change in the Shadow. And she has the most craziest throttling like velocity of hatred for Shadow Guard. So she gets up and she just screams and just hops in. And now she's fighting. Like, so this fight's going on. And then to close out that fight, which this fight does take part of like half of an episode, and then almost like a complete episode. It's going down, and it is crazy. It is crazy on how it ends. He ends up doing his atomic sequence where he throws up this magic field across the Capitol, and he's about to explode and do the atomic explosion, which we've seen in a previous episode when he did this, where he just like blew up everything inside the radius of that magic force field. Well, he, for those who have watched the show, he doesn't kill people that does not need. He doesn't hurt innocent people. So when that was happening, I knew I didn't know. I was like, I know he's not about to just kill everybody. Not now. Like, he's been doing everything good until then. He fakes out and does the atomic sequence, but disappears, which infuriates Princess Iris and has her just enraged, just pissed. Like, she is not happy that he was able to get away so easily, and she vows to get stronger to be able to handle up on that, which is good. It's good. It's great. It's whatever. Like, calm down, lady. You got a long way to catch up to him. And then you see a sequence that happened in the midst of all that fighting. Princess Rose runs into Alpha, and Alpha tells her that she is able to make a choice, and that is to do this all alone or join Shadow Garden. Rose asks what's the chances of the survival of her kingdom. Alpha tells her, well, it depends on your choice, on what the chances are. Rose then has a series of flashbacks of all her little memories that came about throughout this duration of the show when she's introduced, and everything that happened with Sid all the way up until now. And she joins Shadow Garden, and then she's taken by Alpha to the the hidden little area, Alexandria, where that is the Shadow Garden, the base of operations. She's taken there and immediately goes through kind of like a boot camp um, where Lambda completely strips her of all of her clothes, rips everything up, and her last memory that she had was of Sid Kagenou. It's this little piece of paper that comes down, and she remembers it from one of her experiences and memories that she had with Sid, and it is completely shattered. And then she is dubbed as Warrior 666. So, with that being said, that closes out the rest of season one with that. And you see Rose completely just going through it. And it's sad. It's very interesting. And it ties in a lot of things. And you just know it's not done yet, but you can't wait to see what's going to happen next. I really can't wait to see what season two has to offer, as in terms of like people with strength, and will they be able to even keep up with Shadow? Shadow definitely plays around with people and makes it seem as if they have a chance, even though it's like the toying is pretty fun. Like you kind of think that somebody's going to like go nuts and wild, and all the stuff that he does in between, how he goes against all these incredible beings. There's this other little thing going on at this other place of interest that he went to and was able to summon the witch and take her down and actually help her release herself and be able to disappear and live in peace. He was able to do that and then learn and acquire power from her. It's just nuts on how everything is taking place and what happens. And it feels like it's just never done with. And I like it. I like how they constructed it. It feels like there's so much more to see. Even though you already kind of know what's going to happen, you just want to see what everybody else does. Even though Sid plays a like a central point when he comes around, he focuses a lot on being the background character until everything goes like haywire. So you get to understand and get to like get familiar with all the characters, their strengths, their weaknesses, their standpoint and everything before everything breaks off. So it's amazing. Definitely, if I had to really rate this show, just season one, I'd have to say like an 8.5 out of 10. I would say 10 out of 10 because it's me. I enjoyed it a lot. It was one of those, it captivated me on the first episode. I was like, I got to keep watching it. And I did watch this with my little girl. We watched it together. The whole thing, did not skip any of this. I do heavily recommend, do not let your little ones watch this. There's a lot going on in it. It's definitely a good show for any anime lover out there. It touches a little bit on like the little medieval stuff. So if you are a medieval lover that fell for stuff like Black Clover, or even like the real live action Lord of the Rings, this kind of digs into this and almost kind of touches a little bit of the Seven Deadly Sins, just that medieval type of esque fantasy realm type deal. It's definitely worth the watch. My personal opinion, 10 out of 10. My review to give to y'all, season one, has to be laying between 8.5 to a 9. It's great. It's solid. I'd have to say the only thing that people wouldn't like would be how overpowered Kagenou is. But if that's not a thing for you, it's definitely a 10 out of 10. The storyline's good. Everything's digging. Everything makes sense, and there's nothing that's just too far fetched. So if that's something that you're interested in, where it's just like a fantasy-esque, magic-based like world of where we see a little bit of reincarnation, reborn, ethics, Greek mythology, all kinds of things tying into just one show. This is it for you. Definitely give it a good look. There is a season 2, and their season 3 has not been confirmed, but there is a movie that was announced for it. It's called The Eminence and Shadow Lost Echoes. It was announced December of last year. So be on the lookout for this. Definitely give it a look. Season 1 is on Hulu for those who watch Hulu like myself. That's where I watch most of my anime. I will be most likely getting Crunchyroll here soon, so I can just go ahead and maybe tie into a couple of shows that haven't been fully released with everything on Hulu. But until then, there's so much stuff that's on Hulu to be able to watch, and I'll be able to give more coming up soon. I don't know what's next on the list. There's so many animes to watch. There's so much I've not caught up with. I still have Spy Family season 2. I still have Demon Slayer season 3, and I just have a lot to watch. And I'm 9 times out of 10 not going to do reviews on too many high end shows like Demon Slayer. Like that's very mainstream. Everybody's going to probably watch that and know about that. I wouldn't want to bring to you something that everybody and their mom's going to watch. This is like a little sleeper anime that I came across while scrolling through, watched one episode and got hooked and thought that it was definitely great to bring to y'all. Maybe the next one might be a recap of Future Diary. I did watch that personally. I might have to rewatch it again. Future Diary was great. EK was great. There's so many different ones that I want to be able to bring to the table and have like a little nice discussion, review, a premise, synopsis, little overrun, and definitely take the time in each one of these episodes that you can see. Definitely on Spotify, there is a section where it asks for feedback. Please give feedback on this, whether you liked it, whether you didn't like it, more things you would like to see, stuff that I left out. Definitely give me some feedback. It's great. I do go take the time to go listen and watch and read any sorts of feedback that I get on this. It helps me be able to bring more to the table and be able to change the style of delivering information in these podcasts to better suit the listeners. And so without the feedback, I won't be able to bring 100% the best content that you would like. So until next time, this was Anime Talks. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next episode.